Hello, all. Welcome to the Grants in Place Celebration of Learning. Thank you so much for being here and being here on time. We're gonna give folks just another like 1 minute or so to get here, and then we will get rolling. But yeah, thank you all for being here.
Leslie, how's the weather in Jackson?
It is a beautiful day in Jackson today. Sunny, warm. Yeah, the Tetons are in their element. Summer starting.
My sister-in-law runs a RV park in Virginia City, Montana. And of course, they lost one complete weekend, I think 2 weeks ago when you guys got snow.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's been typical spring, a mix of snow and sun up here for us. Yeah. Well, I think we are at time, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Leslie Cook. I'm the head of professional learning at Teton Science Schools, and I have the great honor today to help facilitate the Grants in Place Celebration of Learning. I'd like to turn it over to my colleagues, Taylor McCabe-Yunke and Savannah Franklin, next to welcome you all and tell you a little bit more about this program and the Rural Schools Collaborative.
Thanks, Leslie. Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. My name is Taylor McCabe-Yunke. I'm the Executive Director of Rural Schools Collaborative. And many of you folks may know that the Rural Schools Collaborative Grants in Place project is our way of connecting rural teachers and their communities through dollars to do exciting projects. And to date, we've given out over $700,000, which is pretty incredible. So this has been a huge milestone for us to be able to grow the number of grants out, but we can't say enough how proud we are of both our hub partners who helped connect us to caring teachers in their regions, and also, of course, the teachers themselves who executed these amazing projects to strengthen the bonds between their students and their place. So it is my privilege to be able to be here and share a huge thank you to all of you for being here and for sharing your projects with us. But I can't take any credit for this. I'm really happy, to thank Leslie for being here as our facilitator and co-conspirator on the Grants in Place project and Teton Science School's amazing work in place-based education. But really handing it back to the mastermind, who is Savannah Franklin from the Rural Schools Collaborative team, who has been shepherding this work all year. So Savannah, I will turn it back over to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. I'm Savannah Franklin, Development Operations Manager at Rural Schools Collaborative, and I can't thank you all enough for being here today. As Taylor so eloquently said, that we have our 17 fellows representing 16 of our regional hubs from across the nation, and they just all did an exceptional job of connecting their students to their community and bringing their community into their school. So I won't take any more time or any credit because you all amazing educators are the ones that did the work. So I'm excited to pass it off to Cassandra, who's going to kick us off from our Alabama Black Belt Hub.
Hi, I'm Cassandra Allen. I'm a teacher at Francis Marion School. It's in Alabama in the Black Belt. We are a pre-K through 12 school in rural Alabama. We serve about 457 students pre-K through 12. And so our project was the community garden and outdoor classroom. The project actually started out with the students not wanting to be in the classroom. They wanted to say, can we go outside? I was like, no, where are we going to sit? Well, we can make a garden. I was like, I don't know if we can, I don't know if that's going to work. And so I mentioned it to my administrator, hey, the kids want to create a garden. And she said, make it work, make sure that it applies to your course of study, because I teach computer science. And I was like, well, we did a project with a greenhouse, a small version of a greenhouse. Maybe we can use that same concept and apply it to a bigger project. And so that's how this started. Go to the next slide. So we have this space outside of my classroom. It's really huge. So our thought was, how can we use this plot of land to help improve the school and the surrounding community? So we did the garden, we came up with the gardening idea, and then I saw the Grant in Place grant and I applied for it. And I was like, okay, we got this, let's make it work. So it was rough. It was really, really rough. we had all this grass, nowhere to get rid of the grass. So the kids like, what can kill the grass but not contribute chemicals to the soil? And so we came up with the idea of putting geotextile down and came up with a design. And if you go to the next slide, you can actually see their design. So they designed it out, what they wanted in certain spots, what they wanted as far as gravel, seating area, the irrigation system. And then they also talked about the supply list, what supplies they needed, what plants they wanted to grow. And as the more we planned, the bigger it actually got. So we have a 4-H lady that came in and she helped us with soil testing to see if actually what they wanted to grow was suitable with the soil that we had. And if it was not, what can we put in the soil to make it suitable? She also talked to us about when to plant certain plants, how long it takes them to germinate, how long when they become full and mature. Well, my kids also do 21st Century, which is an after school program. And so they was like, hey, can we go work in Miss Allen's garden doing 21st Century? Well, because we operate out of 3 different buildings, the 21st Century coordinator was not comfortable with them coming across the street. So what we did was a classroom project increased to a school-based project. So this place outside of my classroom is our primary garden. And then on the 4-6 hall, we have a garden for the 4-6 students. And then the pre-K through 3 children have a garden as well. And so they work on their garden doing 21st Century. And we also have a project that we're doing with a company called Ed Farm. We only have 1 grocery store in our city, and our sister school doesn't have a grocery store in their city at all. And so what turned into a classroom project then turned into a school project. Now we have an actual district project that we're talking to the kids about sustainability and how we can use our crops after they grow them to actually aid the community. And we also have an alliance with another community organization to actually expand on what we've already started with the grant in place. And on the next 2 slides, I just have pictures of the students working and the supplies and what it looks like. And that's the geotextile that we laid down to kill the soil, to kill the grass, so that we could actually put some other stuff down. So.
Awesome. Cassandra, thank you so much for sharing your project and for planting a garden at your school. That looks like a beautiful space and a real opportunity for your students to spend some more time outside. Thank you. As Savannah mentioned, and as Cassandra modeled, we'll get to hear from each fellow for about 3 to 4 minutes. If you have questions or kudos for the fellow, we encourage you to add those to the chat, and the fellows will check in on the chat after they finish presenting to address questions. We have 16 projects that we're celebrating today, and so we'll probably take a stretch break midway through the presentations, and then we'll do an unmuted celebration at the very end to get to cheer on and congratulate the fellows. So it's my pleasure next to welcome Amanda Biviano from the Appalachian region.
Hi, as you said, I'm Amanda Biviano, and I teach at Floyd County High School. That's in Virginia, Floyd, Virginia. We have a pretty small little town that what I really love about Floyd is that we're right off the Blue Ridge Parkway, and we're part of the Crooked Road Music Trail, which is celebrates bluegrass music and traditional music in the area. So what I wanted to do was to create connections with for our students with their rural roots, and also kind of examine some of the challenges that we are having as a community and just in Appalachia in general. So what I did was form partnerships with the Old Church Gallery, which is an arts and crafts center in Floyd, mainly created by volunteers of like a lot of former retired teachers. And they're just dedicated to Floyd, and then the Floyd Center of the Arts and the Floyd Historical Society. And so our goal was to build awareness and to create, celebration of Appalachia, but also build awareness of the struggles that we face. So on the right, you see our the cover page for our digital project. And that's, I'll explain that a little bit as I go into the final results. So first we began with class research, and that was just your traditional, because I'm an English teacher, so traditional, we chose books that had, and I kind of got some students to volunteer to pre-read, and the librarian and I searched for a lot of books that dealt with Appalachian communities, and then just and also issues that we face. And so it could range from drug abuse, like with Dope Sick with Beth Macy's, the opioid epidemic, to strip mining, just all kinds of sorts of issues. And then they also, I connected them with a person that they would research. Outside of their research, they would interview an expert community member. And that was just different members of the community that volunteered to come into the school and have them interview them. And that's one of our volunteers, Ricky Cox. He also presented to our class. He's a professor nearby, and he studies Appalachian studies. And next slide, please. So, and then our field research included going to the museums, the Floyd, the Old Church Gallery, like I mentioned, and the Floyd Historical Society. We took 2 field trips. We also did a nice little stop for lunch at the Mexican restaurant, which they loved. And they heard from each place that they visited had speakers set up in different rooms. And so we just kind of did like tours of groups of students, because they're kind of small buildings, where they just heard about different areas of our region. So we have, like, you know, we had art in the top corner, and moonshine making history in Floyd, and just all kinds of really neat things that I had actually not even myself visited, neither have the students. So they really enjoyed that. And then we also had class speakers. As I said, we had the speaker Ricky, who was about traditional music and lifestyle and Floyd. And then we had our sheriff on the bottom right, and then 2 drug officers that visited, spent over an hour answering a million questions about how they are fighting the drug epidemic in our area. And then finally, from all of that research, field research, in-class research, and interviewing, next slide is our results. And so the students created essays, but then we turned all that research and essays into a digital project. And so their goal was to share in no more than 5 minutes all the information they had learned with the public. So they had a whole range. They chose their issues that they wanted to talk about. So we had, you know, one student did a YouTube video on medicinal plants. The girls in the top right did they interviewed 3 different business members, and they discussed how to successfully run a business in a small town, and just a whole range of projects. These are just a couple of them, but overall, it was a great success. They loved it. The students, they all said they really enjoyed the interviews and creating the digital projects. It was way more challenging than we thought it would be, but I think we learned a lot, and I think the community is excited to see them. We're going to be, just so happens they're doing a Floyd Living Traditionals Festival in August, so we're going to share our projects with that as well. Thank you so much. It was really great to have that opportunity.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amanda. It's exciting to hear and see about the really interdisciplinary nature of the project, and to get to see the public products that the students made as a result too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Candice Dunigan from the Delta region and from Arkansas. Candice, take it away.
Hi. Okay, so yes, I am Candice Dunigan, and I work at the Delta School in Wilson, Arkansas. And the Delta School is a private project-based school. It's a very small school of about 80 students, and they really try to focus on the individual interests of each student. So they're kindergarten through, actually pre-K through 12th grade. And every, I think 8th grade and under have garden and makers in their weekly schedule. So they get garden and makers every week. But once they get into the high school, they don't really have that garden time, that set aside garden time anymore. So we try to think of ways to incorporate the garden into their curriculum this year. And we thought composting and mycology lab would be fun. So what our project was, our goals for the project were to create a community composting network, create and maintain a nutrient-rich compost material for our own garden, And then to also construct a mycology lab to grow our own mushrooms from spores and eventually cook farm to table recipes. And I'm sorry, I apologize. I have a script, so I'm kind of like gonna look at it and reference it. But for the composting part, our students successfully communicated and sourced all their materials from local farms, grocery stores, and restaurants, and were able to construct and maintain their own compost pile for the school's garden. And they were responsible for turning the compost weekly and collecting data such as temperature and moisture. Temperature and moisture every week. And then they also gifted local restaurants and stores with containers to collect future composting materials. For the mycology lab, students gained experience in inoculating grain bags from store-bought mushroom spores and eventually moved, once the mushroom spores grew into mycelium, they would move the mycelium into their own handmade monotubs. There, they would care for their mushrooms until they reached maturity. Once the mushrooms reach maturity, which you can see in the bottom right corner, they would take those mushrooms and either print them, which you see right above there. And how you do that is you just put a few drops of water onto the top of your mushrooms and then cover them in a glass jar, and they print the spores onto a piece of paper or aluminum foil. And then they would cook with the rest. So whatever they didn't save for spore printing, they would cook with the rest. And let's see, they made quesadillas, pizza, and fettuccine Alfredo. Unfortunately, we were never able to successfully grow our own mushrooms from the spore printing. We tried, but it just never worked out. Okay, so what the students learned from this project is probably the importance of their place in the natural world. They ended the project with an understanding of the scientific world of nitrogen and carbon cycles and decomposition, along with insights into the interesting world of fungi discovery. I really hope that they were left with an awareness of the amount of waste that we leave behind, and I hope in the future that they will consider this and reduce the amount in the future. Let's see. They, throughout the whole project, they displayed an enormous amount of grit, and I was so proud of them because we faced a lot of challenges. With building the compost pile, they had to connect with a lot of the community leaders and store owners and collect all the materials so that we would have it all on the same day to construct the pile. And then the mushrooms took a lot of trial and error to grow. We faced a lot of problems with that. And throughout the whole project, they never gave up, and they just seemed to love it the entire time. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I learned probably as much, if not more, than the kids did.
Oh, thank you so much, Candice. I think that's a sign of a successful project when teachers are learning alongside their students. That's great to hear. And I feel like I learned a lot about mushrooms and spore transfer from what you shared too. Super cool. Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Next up are Emily, Zachary, and Jessica Brogley from Wisconsin and the Driftless region. Emily and
Hi,
Jessica.
everybody. My name is Jessica Brogley. I'm a multilingual learner teacher here in the Platteville School District.
I'm Emily Zachary. I'm one of the English teachers here, and I'm also one of the district's inclusion advocates.
So Platteville is in the Driftless region of Wisconsin, and of all the communities, it's probably one of the larger in Wisconsin, in Southwest Wisconsin, with just over 11,000 people, but definitely still considered rural. We do have a university in our town that we'll talk about the partnership in a little bit, but our project focuses on celebrating the diversity within the Driftless region, and trying to help our students make connections and see that their perception of what it means to live in a rural area might not be what they thought it was. and we're surrounded with like this amazing tapestry, I think you've called it before, of different cultures. So.
Yeah, so we had lots of ideas. We partnered with a school, I guess, group called Diverse Student Alliance, and tried to have them kind of come up with ideas of how we could do this. And so the three that we came up with were partnering with UW-Platteville and specifically their student groups. And so one of the main things that we did is we created a student panel for any high school student interested. And we went to UW-Platteville and they hosted us, and it was every student group on campus. So this included like the BSU, the Latinx group, the Asian Pacific Islander Student Alliance, but then it also included student support services, which at UW-Platteville is called TRIO. So that's basically servicing any student that would bring with them into college, like an IEP or a 504, and also mental health services. And that, I think, was incredibly eye-opening for our students to realize that diversity is lots of different things. It's not just race, and how you can be your true and authentic self and identity in college, and that it's going to be celebrated, and they don't have to be worried about what they might consider like a disability or something like that, but they're going to have services on campus. So that was really empowering because we had a lot of what we are hoping are going to be first generation college students attend that event. It was really well attended. There was about 40 high school students, and then every campus diverse campus organization was also in attendance, which is really neat. So we're hoping to do that every year, actually. And we just learned a ton from the student perspective, which was great. And then the other thing we did was a cultural field trip. So we went to 2 different museums. We went to the DuSable Black History Museum and then the Puerto Rican Museum of Arts and Culture. So if you want to go to the next slide. These are just a few pictures from the Black History Museum. We took as many as would fit in the bus, which was about 50, which was great. And it was just phenomenal. Students learned so much, very unique, again, to what Jessica said, just students recognizing that there is a lot of diversity in our area and that it needs to be celebrated. Most of our students did not realize that there are like museums dedicated to Black culture and just Black culture. And so that was really eye-opening to them. We also took a number of emergent bilingual students, but also exchange students that have come from different parts of the world and were staying and studying abroad here for a year. And so for them to understand and grapple with American history was really eye-opening. And so that was eye-opening for our own high school students as well. And then the next picture, I think, is still the Black History Museum. Yes, us and a little bit of the Puerto Rican Museum as well. So the Puerto Rican Museum is actually the only one in the entire US that's dedicated just to Puerto Rican culture. And it's in an old, beautiful, that's actually a stable. It's like a really old stable. And so it's gorgeous. And so they have really neat art. And then the entire upstairs is dedicated to the Taino culture. And then they're traveling. The next slide you can go to, the traveling exhibit was barrio dance culture. So just talking about the power of dance and some of the beautiful dresses. So kids learned a ton. They were excited to go. It was completely free to them thanks to the grant and a few other funding resources. So we can't thank everyone enough for the opportunity.
Wow. Thank you so much, Emily and Jessica. And the pictures are amazing. I'm glad your students got to go to those museums and that they're chances for them to see windows into other cultures or reflections of their own as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I'm excited to welcome Pamela Turner from Illinois. Pamela.
Hello, everyone. So I teach in a rural school, Jonesboro Elementary. There's about 350 students total, pre-K through 8th grade. 8th grade happens to be my homeroom, and we are a very small town, as it says. The main reason we do not have a stoplight or anything, we do have a square in the middle of our town. And the main reason we have a lot of traffic around that square is because we connect 2 interstates, Interstate 57, which runs north and south and goes through Illinois, and to Interstate 55, which you can get onto over in Missouri. So we were saying, you know, how we would love for some people to stop and get some tourism money, and also students, we've talked about how so many of the factories that we used to have are now closed, and what could we do? So we decided to do a journey through Jonesboro, realized there was so much history that our students didn't know about, and I was shocked to find out their parents didn't know about either, and many of their grandparents didn't know, even those who have lived here for several decades. So we chose community sites to research. If you'd like to go to the next slide. We brought in different historians, local historians. You see Abe Lincoln even came. We partnered with our local history group, and we were lucky to have him talk about when he actually came to Jonesboro in 1858 for the Lincoln-Douglas debate. The third Lincoln-Douglas debate was held here in Jonesboro. We took kids on field trips around our town. You can see the local historian who actually used to be a history teacher. He was telling the kids about, in that map, the history of Illinois, the history of Jonesboro in particular, and how the Trail of Tears section of it actually went through Jonesboro. They learned about how important the railroad was to our town. We actually have that caboose sitting at our local library. On the bottom is when the kids, we went to the Past House, which appreciates the structural treasures of our community. And we were lucky to have different, once again, historians talk about that. There's a picture of all the kids in front of the house. And the next one is the librarian talking to the students and giving information. We went through it. The library actually used to be an old train depot, and then later it was turned into a library, but the significance of that and why it was important. We do not have, of course, a train depot anymore in Jonesboro. And the picture, I don't know if you guys can see it, she's talking about different quilts and the importance of quilts and how they told stories too. And then the next slide. So students decided then that for their journey to Jonesboro to share with the whole community was to make plaques to put around our different historical sites. So first, here are some 8th graders in front of Jonesboro City Council. They had to go to the council to get permission to do this project. And they were a little nervous to speak in front of the council. And of course, they got overwhelming support. Then the kids had to choose which sites they wanted. The pictures on the middle show the front and back of a brochure that they made. And the bottom left shows one of the students in the video, and that is from the link. The picture on the right shows an actual final sign of, for example, the Trail of Tears. That plaque is now up on the square in Jonesboro. So anyone who stops by can use their smartphone, click on that QR code, and hear actually Ellie tell you about the Trail of Tears and what happened when they came through Jonesboro. The kids loved it. They loved learning about it. They said they can't wait to take their families around to see the different videos and learn more. And then I had a group that wanted to go further and make it their Beta Club project. So they actually presented at a regional Beta Club leadership competition. They qualified for nationals, and we actually leave tomorrow. I'm taking 16 students from Jonesboro to Savannah tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. And I have a group that's going to present tomorrow. Well, actually they present next Tuesday, this project for national competition. So they've really went far with it. So when you see Beta Club added on there, they're the ones that kind of went above and beyond and wrote this, like I said, writing the scripts. I'm the language arts teacher. And so when they've realized that was the hardest part, writing the scripts for videoing. And then we would have to send it back to the local historians to make sure that everything was correct. So it was really like they got to feel like what authors, I think, feel like, to go back and forth and have that editing process to, I would check it for grammar, but the historians would definitely check it for the accuracy. So I just want to thank you. It's been great way to just bring our whole community together. I keep getting emails every day from business owners to thanking us. And then I thank you guys. I say, well, it's because of the grant we were able to do this. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. That was so exciting to hear about your students taking leadership and that the project's still unfolding as they take it on to more audiences. Great work. Thank you. Next up, I'm excited to welcome Andrea Levy from Indiana and the Great Lakes region. Andrea.
Hi, I'm Andrea Levi, and I teach at Rising Sun High School. Rising Sun is about 45 minutes outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, right along the Ohio River. So we're the only high school in our county. Our county has about 5,000 people, and pre-K through 12, we have about 900 students. So a little larger than some of the other people have been here today, but still very, very small and very rural. Primarily, I teach physical science and chemistry, but one period a day I have, in the fall, we have child and adolescent development, and in the spring, we do introduction to teaching professions. We're trying to create our own teacher pipeline because we've had a lot of trouble getting new teachers to come to our area. And we've been successful that 6 of the students who have went through our pipeline are now back teaching in our community after college. So it's working for us. This was the cohort of students I decided to do my place-based education project with. As part of this project, we decided to partner with a really popular entity in our community. We don't have very much industry or business, but we have a public library that is really successful. In the little round circle on this slide, I put that our library, for as small as our community is, they logged over almost 26,000 visits a year. And about half of our residents in our county are registered borrowers. So that's a pretty big deal. The picture there is the public library. So about 26% of our 5,000 residents are either preschool through high school age. And so we wanted to do a project that went along with our introduction to teaching and child and adolescent development course. And we realized that in a community our size, we have 0 preschool resources. We have no daycares in our entire county. We have a few in-home providers, but no daycare in our entire county. Our school runs a daycare for employees, and if we ever have a student who has a child, but a community as a whole, we have no daycares. So we decided to partner with the library, and we asked, and they were super excited to partner with us on this project. So we decided to make learning kits. I'm ready to go to the next slide. So I had 19 students in the course this year, and we gave them each a budget of around $100 to $150. And they chose their topics and researched developmentally appropriate activities, games, puzzles. Every learning kit has a book, and they wrote a summary for parents about how they could use those resources to help their child's development, specifically like hand-eye coordination, or they talked about exactly what level their student is probably at based on their age and what they could do with that kit to help their child move to the next level. We made kits that dealt from cultural boxes to music art boxes. We had a lot of STEM boxes. We just had some really awesome ideas in there. An unanticipated benefit of this is that students were able to present their projects at a local school board meeting and the library board meeting. And that was really eye-opening because a lot of my students didn't know that those organizations even existed that keep our town running. And they were very surprised that there were hardly any participants on those boards under age 60. So those members were very adamant to them that we need you to become educated and return to our community and help us continue to move forward. I'm ready for the next slide. So we presented our boxes to the public library, and they did a lot of fanfare about it coming to the community, and they've been checked out. We have over 100 times that they've been checked out already, and we just placed them in March. there's a link in the bottom right on this slide if anybody's interested to go back, and it has a link of one of the young patrons and her grandmother playing with one of the science boxes. And so we were really excited for this opportunity. I don't know do I have another slide, or was that it? I think that's it, isn't it? Yes. So we were really excited for this opportunity. We did have $124 left over, and we were able to donate that to the public library to replace any resources that might become damaged or lost or whatever in one of these resources. So my students were really excited. I started the year with 2 of them wanting to be teachers, and I ended the year with 6 of them wanting to be teachers. So we're hoping we keep that teacher pipeline going, and that provides resources for our preschool community.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And that is essential work right now, thinking about the teacher pipeline in rural communities and especially a grow your own program like that. It's exciting to hear about both that and then to see all of those boxes and the kits that are getting into your library. It's wonderful. Thank you. All right, next up is Amanda Knox from Iowa. Amanda.
Hi, I am a 6-12 art teacher at Starmont Community School District, which is a combining of 3 different tiny communities, that's Strawberry Point, Arlington, and Lamont, that combined together to make Starmont. We are kind of located in the middle of nowhere. We look out our window and I see corn. So it's just kind of on the corner of a highway between the 3 communities. If you could go to the next slide. So basically, I noticed that our school was in need of a little bit more pride in school culture. And so we wanted to beautify our school, or Gucci our school, I guess. And so I kind of put it onto the students and said, what do you guys want to do? And there's been a few projects in the last few years of some paintings going up on the walls and some different things. And a lot of the kids wanted to continue that. So these are some murals that the kids have created. The first one was a joint project between the high school as well as the elementary school. So all of the elementary kids got to put their thumbprint on that. Your mark can make an influence. And that kind of happened really quickly because our elementary art teacher was pregnant and she was going to leave really quick. So we kind of had to get that ball rolling. And by we, it was the students that drove it. So the main student that was in charge of it, she got everything up and running and told the art teacher what needed to happen, and they made it happen. And then what was left was somewhat of a blank canvas that then that high school student took it upon herself to kind of finish. This particular high school student has made quite a few strides in the last few years about trying to figure out who she is. So I think she wanted to allow that kind of feeling of growing to be shared in the school system. The middle one is a senior, and he wanted to create some tape murals that were more abstract in their nature. And so this is just one example, but he made a few of them, and they're fairly large murals. And he's working at kind of like a college level, I guess. It's really amazing to watch him work and create these. These are all created with that blue painter's tape that he's cutting really, really tiny and making all of these little marks. He doesn't want them to be specific to a message other than people can get their own message from them. For example, this particular one makes me feel about like being alone, but then also in a group and kind of having a sense of space. So I think that these are really cool to be able to have conversations with my students and other people as well. The other one was an 8th grade student who was really amazing as a painter, and she wanted to create something that was just interesting to look at. Go to the next slide. Then I had middle school kids. They wanted to create some magnets for some lockers to kind of boost up school spirit a little bit. So these are some magnets that they have created that will go all over the lockers when they're in part of those clubs. And I think that that will be a really positive thing when they come back in the fall to see all these magnets. And then the next slide. They created 2 display boards. One is about a mental health, and then the other one, which is still in progress of being actually added to the wall, is there's a couple of kids that spearheaded the idea that they wanted to put up images of kids that are being amazing, and not necessarily just the sports kids, but also kids that are student of the month or whatever. So both of those are displays that we have up in our halls.
Amanda, thank you so much for sharing. It's I think the school community and culture aspects of the project, the art and beautifying the school and the mental health connections too are also important, and beautiful products for your school into the future too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I am excited to welcome next Karl Stover from Kansas. Karl.
Hi, everybody. I'm from USD 327, Ellsworth, Canopolis, Geneseo. We're a county school in Kansas. So we have 3 towns that make up our school district. And actually, there's a bunch of unincorporated towns as well, but these are the 3 that are still incorporated. So with our school district, we're kind of spread out. We have 2 of our schools in Ellsworth. Our high school and our elementary school, and then our middle school, which is 4th through 6th grade, is in Canopolis. All of our towns are pretty small, but we really wanted to make a connection with our high school students and our middle school students and open their eyes to how you can be healthy and be active in a community with not a lot of things to do. So we don't have a movie theater. You can go to the grocery store and the gas station and church on Sunday. That's about the extent of our excitement in Ellsworth. So we wanted to get them, ideas of healthy things they could do to stay active. I actually had a partner in crime. Her name's Mandy, and we kind of came up with this idea, and we started at the high school level. We got with our nutrition and health and wellness students and got them thinking, okay, what are things that we can do around this town to be healthy? And what are things around town that students could actually be involved in, whether it's now or as an adult? So the high school students actually formed groups, and they planned out all sorts of activities that they wanted to share with their middle school comrades. For example, one group wanted to share about gardening and the impact of gardening and how, you don't have to have a lot to have a little garden. So they talked to students about the healthiness of vegetables and fruits and how you can grow them. And they went through how do you plant, what are the things a plant needs and what can you do even if you don't have a lot of space to grow something. And they were really excited to teach, and every kid actually got to take home a tomato plant. I'm curious, I'm going to ask some of them when we come back to school, how many tomato plants lived? Because that's always the real challenge with gardening, is what lived. Additionally, students learned about My Plate and how to make a healthy and happy plate and what that looks like. And also different ways that they can just be up and active, from games they can invite their friends to, different things that they can just do around their own house. Additionally, when we took all of our activities over to Canopolis, we placed them all around our town. So students walked the entire town of Canopolis. It didn't take that long because it's not that big of a town, but they set up actually at different locations where they can get involved in. So one of the locations was our volunteer fire department. So we got them exposed to where the fire department was and the fact that, when they get of age, if they wanted to volunteer, whether that's cleaning or being on the fire department itself, they could do it. We also sent kids to our community center, which is a place that all of our local groups actually have their meetings at, so that they would be familiar. And additionally, we went to our park/library. The library is right next to the park, so it works out great. And got them there so that they could have exposure to the different places in Kannapolis and where they could walk and go to. All of our middle school students got to participate in this. At the end of their day, they actually did a fun run. So not only did they run all around the town of Kannapolis and do all these fun activities, but they did about a 1/4 mile fun run, and it was a sprint. So they finished with that and got their own t-shirts. So it was a great day for everybody.
Thanks so much, Karl. I appreciate all the connections to getting those students outside and exploring the community in some new ways. Hopefully, it sounds like they're seeing it with new eyes and new ideas of what they could do in your place. Thank you. Well, next up, we're going to take just a quick break. So a chance for you to stand up, look out your window, take a few deep breaths, and maybe just listen for a moment to what's going on around you. It's 12:45 where I am right now. Let's come back together in 3 minutes. So at 12 minutes till. See you in a few. All right, start making your way back, please. All right, and as a reminder, please add questions and kudos to the chat for the fellows. And fellows, make sure to keep an eye on the chat after you finish to respond to any questions that might come up too. And our next fellow is Melody Ball from the Missouri region, or the Ozark region of Missouri. Melody.
Good afternoon. I am Melody Ball. I am the elementary school counselor in Fordland, Missouri. I have with me one of my leadership kids, Waylon, and I will let him speak in just a minute. Our project was the Leadership Community Park Restoration Project. Fordland is a very small town, so unfortunately, sometimes in small towns, the parks get a little neglected. So my heart is with leadership in my school. So I have a group of select 4th and 5th graders who last year we kind of started on this project thinking, not knowing that we would have the opportunity to have this grant. So it just kind of all flowed in line together. I asked the kids last year what would they like as a community project, and they narrowed it down to working on our park. So when this grant came available, it was a perfect segue for us to do bigger and better with what we had originally planned for the park restoration. So these kids were amazing. They each group of kids had to research painting, they had to research flowers, they had to research how to make the grounds look better. And so with that, then we purchased products and items for the park to get it better. Next slide, please. So just to show that it was definitely a community effort, it wasn't just 17 leaders and one counselor that were able to do this project. It was 1 year of lots of planning, talking to a lot of community leaders, getting a lot of parents, staff members involved. We had several donations from the community, which was able to allow us to stretch our dollar even further for the grant. And so we it rained for days before this final park project, and I was in tears the night before because I said there's no more. This date got changed several times due to conflict of the city or families or myself. So finally, the morning of, it was still sprinkling and I was very nervous, but you can tell in the background of this picture that the sun did come out. Just to show that what we had involved, I had 17 of my 25 student leaders there, myself, 25 guardians, which means a lot of our kids came with both of their parents, and that was remarkable that they wanted to get involved. 7 siblings. I wanted to point that out because we had some kindergartners, 1st and 2nd graders that came and joined with these 4th and 5th graders to help. The little boy in the back was a kindergartner. So and I enforced to my kids all year long how important it is to be leaders all the time, because these little ones are watching and they wanted to help. Some of the things that we did, we had to paint the public restrooms. That was definitely a fun chore for some of these kids. The park sign, you can see a little bit of it in that picture. It was placed originally backwards. And so we had to fix that up. They did a lot of mowing, some pea gravel. And I'm going to let Waylon real quick tell you about the next slide, what's on those pictures.
So the first picture is where some of the parents and some of the siblings, they were helping with the sign because us kids didn't really know how to really pour concrete and make all that stuff. So they helped us a lot with that. And then the bottom big picture is a few of us kids working, trying to help the adults get it all done and get it done before the day was over so we can go and get all of our other stuff done that we had planned today. And it was pretty hot and it was a good day to be doing this. And
all right, next picture. Or next slide, sorry. All right, go ahead.
So this picture is of all of us kids working together to move all this rock and paint the bathrooms and stuff. We poured a bunch of rock around slides, merry-go-rounds, and swings. We moved some pavilion tables out of the way. And then the bottom little portion is some of us kids helping paint all the bathrooms. It took a while to get the bathrooms done. First, we had to clean them really hard to get them all sparkly clean, and then we painted them a new color because the paint was wearing off.
Thank you, Waylon. The big part about our project real quick is we wanted to have inclusivity, and to tell you that our piece of equipment is still not here yet, and we ordered it months ago. So that is to be continued. The city is very aware of what's going on, so we will have the city put in an inclusive, it's some stemming items for the playground so that the kids could use that too for sensory. Sorry, I'm not a very good public speaker. He's better than I am.
Oh, Melody and Waylon, thank you both so much for sharing about your work and what you're doing together. And it's exciting to see how the park is coming together, and that you are in the midst of a real world project, whether weather delays or supply chain and things moving slowly and getting to you. That's real, and you all are responding with grace and kindness to each other in the community. Thank you. For our next fellow, I'd like to welcome Talia Miller from New England.
Hi, everybody. It's been so fun to listen to everyone. I've been very inspired. So I received this fellowship 2 years ago, which was a great honor. And then I was a participant in this year's International Teacher Reciprocity Project. So I was matched up with some schools in Wales, and I wasn't totally sure what to do yet. And then I thought, well, if I got some funding, I could do some pretty cool stuff. So my town I teach in is called Colrain, and I work as the librarian there. So my project's called Colrainers in the Library, and creating belonging in the library. So you can go to the next slide. So when we were matched up with schools in Wales, we were matched with 2 rural elementary schools, and our students introduced each other, and then we decided we would share history around local landmarks in our towns. And it was fun for me to introduce research skills to students, like with this real world place-based purpose. And as a librarian, I'm always trying to show kids that the books can be like a mirror to reflect yourself and a window or a doorway into other people and culture. So they were seeing these landmarks in their own town and what that meant to their town. And then they were also learning about the wider world. And so the research skills were happening. I was able to use funding to bring in an artist to work with the students. So after doing research, they created paper mache models of the landmarks that they learned about. And those are going to be on permanent display in the library. And so we are just wrapping that project up with Wales too. They sent us their final project. So next week, in our last week of school, the students will get to have their final interactions. Next slide, please. So in addition to thinking of the library as a mirror and window, another important part of my vision is that students feel like they belong in the library and that they have a sense of voice. And because of the climate around libraries in our country right now, I also wanted to consider the voice of the wider community and invite them into helping to add to our library catalog. Until a year ago, our library budget was only about $4 per student for the year and $1 per student for materials. So, so this grant kind of like did more than double our budget for the year for the library. So it was really essential to be able to bring in the voice and be able to fund the books that people wanted. So students created a survey, and older students filled it out online, and younger students represented it with cubes. And so those books have arrived, and now people's interests are represented in the library. We were also able to use the funds to bring in an author illustrator. And I think that kind of fit in with the third part of my vision for the library, is that it's a fun and novel experience. So students got to learn about a new kind of job and have fun with the visiting author, and they were inspired to do their own artwork afterwards. Next slide. And so the outcomes, I think, you know, we had our fun, we got our sense of the wider world and our place in it. And I also want to keep the project going. So I took part in a professional development, and I got a mini grant from the Library of Congress. So next year, I'm going to keep the local landmarks part going. And we're going to focus on the one-room schoolhouses that were once in our town. Our town once had 13 one-room schoolhouses, and there's one of them that's sort of restored, and you can visit it. So I'm hoping that we'll next year we will research the local schoolhouses, and then this project can continue. So I also found this to be just like a nice shot of energy for myself as an educator, and I'm excited to keep it going. So thank you for the support.
Congratulations. It sounds like you and your students had good success and met a number of the outcomes that you were hoping to through this project. And I'm super excited to hear it's continuing into the future next year too. Congratulations. And thank you, Talia. Our project and presenter is Sheila Gerding from North Dakota.
Sheila, I think you might be muted.
There, it probably sounded better the first time. Okay. I am Sheila Gerding. I'm from Surrey, North Dakota, and we're a school of about 420 pre-K through 12 students. And I was new to the school this year and wanted to bring a very important group to Surrey, and that was called Sources of Strength. Sources of Strength is a suicide prevention group that basically it kind of predicated on building relationships amongst peers, because students are more apt to go to a peer when they're struggling with things than they are an adult. So we set a goal with our grants in place, opportunity to do 5 projects within our school to help build those relationships. The first one there was to have a suicide awareness night. We kind of teamed that up with the September Walk in the Darkness for suicide prevention. So it was kind of a great way for us to introduce ourselves and also just our mission and what it was. I'm not sure why my pictures are missing in this slide, but there was a picture there of my counterpart, Bree Trottier. I know this is an important group for her as she has some personal feelings about suicide, and she did a great job of helping spearhead this project as well. So the pictures in here are kids at a suicide prevention night where we celebrated at a volleyball game and did some suicide awareness, and then our suicide prevention walk, as well as a picture of our suicide or our Sources of Strength group. So next slide, please. Our second goal was to have a Sources of Strength week and to introduce ourselves to the school and to our community. So with Source Strength, there's 8 parts of the wheel. What we did was we picked 5 parts of that wheel and tried to represent one of them every day. The first one was healthy activities, where we hosted, we had somebody come in and they taught our 9th through 12th graders some yoga for about 30 minutes. And then we got to do the healthy part and eat donuts and have water. So we kind of teamed that up with a little fun and just tried to have a lot of fun doing yoga. Tuesday was our mentor day, where we actually had our Source Strength group, which is about 40 students, 9th through 12th grade, go in and work with our elementary students on what a mentor is and what it is to be a mentor, and then have them write down in color a picture of who their favorite mentor was and what it means to them. So it's a good way to interact with their elementary. And then Wednesday, we had a guest speaker come in, Chris Schufel. He has an amazing job of giving a message about resiliency and did a great job of just presenting to our school, both elementary and high school. Next slide, please. Our Thursday was our generosity day, where we actually had brought drinks and breakfast to our teachers. And on Friday, you can see we're mixing up a big bunch of batter for cupcakes, but students could come and get a free cupcake all the way through pre-K through high school if they wrote down who their family support was. Another goal was our tie blanket project. You can see that they did a lot of tie blanket things there. And on our last slide, our last 2 projects were our Christmas wish dinner, where we rounded up the goods and fixings for Christmas dinner, but couldn't put pictures in here because of privacy. And the last thing was Positive Friends Night, which turned into a Surrey Olympics, and had a lot of fun just interacting with our students and really having a good time. So really excited to bring it to Surrey, and excited that Granson Place gave us this awesome opportunity.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Great work on the project and bringing important topics and awareness to your students with intention and with care. Thank you. Our next project is with Kristen Chambers from Northern California. Kristen. And Savannah, I am just realizing, I think I don't see Kristen in the list. Kristen, are you here with us right now? Maybe we'll bounce over her for now and come back. And I think that means Katie Rose from Idaho and from the Rocky Mountain region, who's also a colleague of mine at the Teton Science Schools. Katie Rose.
Thanks. Unmuting is crucial, isn't it? Thanks, Leslie. I work at Mountain Academy, which is an independent school of Teton Science School. We're preschool to 8th grade, and I work at the Victor campus. We have about, just a little over 100 students, including preschool. I personally work mostly with kindergarten to 8th graders. I teach farming and gardening. And this project came about a community food systems initiative, and it came about from a previous project where we talked about food waste and created a blender bicycle. And when we did the end of that project, we did some food rescue in partnership with a local nonprofit called Food for Good. And the students were really taken back by the amount of food waste being thrown into the trash and at different local grocery stores. And it kind of got us into the different statistics about food waste and methane emissions in the US. So when applying for this, I wanted to find something that would create like a big culminating project that would help support that community food systems initiative. So this project aimed at kind of enhancing our local food ecosystem and incorporating our school garden, community food systems education, and diving into where all of our food comes from. A local food rescue partnership with the Victor Valley Market, which is a tiny little corner grocery store in Victor, and local food rescue programs, and partnering with a local elementary school for redistribution. And then culminating in us creating a produce by donation stand, which is that picture from the last slide. The 6th and 7th graders just finished building that like 2 days ago. And it was a labor of love, and it's so beautiful. And so you can go to the next slide. We involved community members through various stages, from the planning to the collection of food. I had all my middle school students communicating with the manager of the local grocery store, trying to figure out what the most sustainable schedule for food pickup is, all the way to our final project where we worked with a volunteer from Toyota, actually, that came and helped us build it. And then by engaging our students, other educators and classes, local residents, we created just such meaningful community involvement, and it was just the best. This picture on the left is we did a food waste audit, which I'll talk a little bit more about, but the 8th graders, we don't have school lunch. Kids bring their own lunches. So we did a food waste audit based on like waste within lunch boxes, which is pretty minimal. So they wanted to put on like a big community meal and see how much was wasted from that to get a little bit better of an idea. So the 8th graders prepared pizza for the entire school, which was so fun. And we used rescued food as some of the toppings, which was also really great. What else? Oh, so through this process, these students with our food waste audit also were working on like where the food goes, compost to our animals and all these other things. So you can go to the next slide. So I had to just update this morning because there was a rescue yesterday that a student and their parent volunteered to do because school was out. We've rescued and redistributed 1,500 pounds of food from our local corner grocery store since October. We redistributed the food through local nonprofit Food for Good. And anything that isn't good enough for human consumption, the kids would sort through and weigh, and then they'd feed like really bruised things to our chickens, some things to our goats. We have vermiculture like worm bins, and then anything moldy just went into our larger compost or our mealworm farm. And this was a big thing that the students love to share. In the United States, people waste 92 billion pounds of food annually, equal to 145 billion meals. They throw away over $473 billion worth of food annually, which is crazy. Shockingly, we waste 38% of food in America, and it's mostly from households, not necessarily restaurants. Our food waste gives off an estimated 1.5 million metric tons of methane emissions annually. So this was a really cool connection for our students and a way that they can make really big change within their household, which is like, as a teacher, sometimes I feel like it's like when teaching climate change advocacy stuff, it's hard and they feel like there's nothing they can do. So this felt like a win. You can go to the next slide. As I mentioned before, we did a food waste audit, and everybody was educated by the middle school about food waste and where it goes and all these things. And in 1.5 weeks, in 9.2 pounds of food, which is not very much, went to our chickens, 12.4 pounds to the compost, 6.8 pounds to the trash, 21.6 pounds were redistributed. This is just from like lunch boxes. And that felt really good to us. And so this really fun hands-on experiential learning was really impactful. And I have all my middle school students are signing up for summer volunteering for harvesting in our garden, and then putting things out like every other week on our produce by donation stand. So everyone within our neighborhood or small community can have access to local organic produce, and they can take it for free or they can donate what they want. Just having access to good food and having them have their hands in it felt really great. Yeah, that we would not have been able to build that farm stand without the money from this, that's for sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katie Rose. That cumulative number from the school year is huge. It's amazing. Say 1,500 pounds from going into the trash, and getting it into a variety of different places too. Nice work to you and the students, and congratulations.
The best part was when the middle schoolers would take it to the elementary school and then the families would pick it up from them. So they were meeting all these people that were taking the food, which was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, next up is Ben DeCarlow from Oregon and the Pacific Northwest region. Ben.
Oh, so it's been really inspiring hearing all the different stories and the vast range of different things that people are doing. So I am from Butte Falls, Oregon, down as you see in the map there, the southwestern part of Oregon. And I represent a community of less than 500 residents, as the town has a charter school that has a focus on hands-on, project-based, and outdoor learning. And I am the high school science teacher there, as well as the kind of science TOSA for the elementary staff. And the school owns a 13-acre former fish hatchery that is used as outdoor investigation and laboratory space. So that's one of the kind of crown jewels of our district. And I was talking to students early on, and actually started a little bit last school year, to what problems did they see that we could maybe be solving. And one of the things that students noticed was the fact that there used to be frogs on this property when it was a fish hatchery, and the last number of years they've not seen frogs there. So next slide. So the first step in what we did was a lot of data collection. There's a creek that goes through the property, and so students were able to do some preliminary research about where frogs might be located. And then we had 5 different test sites to be able to test the soil. So you can see there in the picture on the left, students being able to dig down and collect soil and then bring it back to our kind of main area. It's a little pavilion where students were able to do some tests themselves in terms of being able to test the pH level and for some basic nutrients of the soil. But then we were also able to get some soil slurry samples, say that 3 times fast, together to send off to a local research organization that was able to do more extensive testing as well. But the students were able to help get that all prepared. One of the really cool things for me as the science teacher watching this process was that we were able to use the science inquiry model of instruction in terms of students were able to ask specific questions and then collect data and be able to analyze that data in a real life way. Because one of the things that we really emphasize at our schools, being able to use that as one of the models that you can really investigate anything. And so we were able to do it for frogs. So the next slide, please. So after we were able to do the initial data collection, we got to kind of a creative state with it, that students were able to design and build frog houses. And so they had to use all locally sourced material. None of this was plastics or anything like that. And so for that process, they were able to use our engineering design model that we use in the school. So identifying and designing the problem, being able to generate different solutions, and then we'll actually be testing solutions and collecting and analyzing that data. And so for me, that's one of the things that has been really fun to watch. So you can see in the pictures, next slide, please. So then after that, we're able to introduce the English language arts component by having students be able to write a brochure as if the frogs were looking to read to where they might want to relocate. So it was a very creative piece. It was pretty funny that a couple of the students asked, in all seriousness, are the frogs actually going to read our brochures? Because this was a group of 6th or 7th graders, but they had some fun with that. And then the last piece is we are hoping next year to be able to reintroduce frogs to the area. So we were able to see that, and we're hoping to be able to continue this project on for future years and also be an inspiration for, we have several new projects that students want to do using this as kind of the template. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about this and for the funding. It definitely was helpful and able to get the research pieces that we needed to done. So thank you.
Thank you, Ben. That's exciting to hear. Students learning about herpetology and frogs. That is an area of study and passion for me. So I'm glad you're getting students involved in it, inquiring about it, and the small worlds connection of having them write brochures for the frogs too. That's great.
Thanks.
Let's see. Next up is Jennifer Brickhouse from the Southeast. Jennifer.
Hi, it's been wonderful hearing all of your projects. I am from Columbia, North Carolina. Most people want to say South Carolina. And some statistics are up here on the screen. We live in a very watery location, very swampy. We live right next, our school is right next to the wildlife refuge. And we are very small, like we have a very small population, but our county is one of the largest in North Carolina. So even though we have the smallest population, we have the largest county in regards to our area because it's so wet. You can't populate it. Next slide, please. And so I started off with my kids. We have a very diverse population of students. I wanted to do some team building to help them feel like they could talk with each other and be honest about the project that we were going to start. I wanted to have a lot of fun with them. And so we did a few team building activities. I kind of wanted to see also, because I haven't had these students before, where their brains were and how they pictured things outside of our classroom. So we did a couple brainstorming activities and brain building activities, and we built towers and did a couple protocols where they got to kind of show me their thinking process. Next slide, please. These are middle school kids. I forgot to tell you that. I teach middle and high school, but I did this with my middle schoolers because my middle school building does not have enough classrooms. So like a PE or PE class, unless they're in the gym, they don't have a space to be otherwise, unless a teacher's classroom is empty. So we're kind of trading out classes. When I started there, because this is my first year at the middle school, they kept talking about the outdoor classroom. And so I went out to it, and it was like a bunch of picnic tables that needed a lot of assistance. They needed to be like fixed. And I was like, well, why don't my kids, like, let me see if I can get this grant and see if my kids can help us make it better. So we started planning our dream outdoor classroom. And when they created a wish list, and it was really long because I was going to put it on the slide, but I didn't. I let each group design their own wish list and come up with a budget. So they had to go and find the item, what they think it would cost. And we had a discussion on prioritizing our items. Because I told them, I was like, if we get this started and you could pick the things that you feel like are the biggest things we need, that you feel like are needs, and we purchase those first and we work with those first, then we can continue throughout the next 5 years or so and make it into your dream. So they created the budget, they created the wish list, and then they decided what was most important on the wish list. We had to invite and involve maintenance in regards to the location and technology, because we needed to be able to access the internet from the outdoor classroom. And then we had a plan that we put together. Next slide, please. So this is their like dream. So in the end, they want to be able to have 2 raised flower beds, which we have not gotten started on yet. That is going to be in collaboration with our FFA, which has the woodworking classes, and they'll be able to do the woodworking. And then we have a agriculture teacher, and she would be incorporated as well. So that wouldn't actually be something that I would have to hit up. They were going to take that on once we figured it out and we figured out funding. The raised beds, we had the tables. So the tables were shoring up and making sure they were sturdy. We relocated them to this place that we wanted them, and I'll tell you which one that is in a second. And they wanted to have a rolling cart for the teachers to use, a grill, some whiteboard, and a trash can, which they were very surprised at how much an outdoor trash can costs around here. So that was interesting. They wanted a canopy or awning or overhead structure, and they wanted to have some sort of rock stone base underneath the structure. So the 3 places that we had discussed are in the pictures. And so we went outside and we looked at these structures with maintenance and technology. And the top one was kind of where the administrator wanted it to be. It's like number 1 is where the administrator wanted it to be. But because of all the equipment out there, like the air units, maintenance said no. And so then we moved to our third, like number 3, that option. And so we ended up going with option 2 because of the location and internet and maintenance. And so that's where we ended up. And so I don't actually have an after, because part of what we are doing is not here yet, and they're helping us put it in place. So we're excited. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Nice work getting this project going and continuing it on as it wraps up, getting supplies and getting things set up. It's great to see your students getting able to be outside more. And I like the addition of the grill to the project in the classroom too. It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Our next fellow wasn't able to be here with us today, Jennifer Bargos from Arizona, but she made a video about her project and presentation that I'll share with you all next. Right.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Bargos. I am a 5th grade gifted teacher at Starline Elementary in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. We are a K-6 school that has about 650 students. We have 3 self-contained gifted classrooms and a self-contained special needs room. At the beginning of the year, I'd spoken with my students to ask what type of major hands-on place-based learning project they would be interested in, and they were really excited to start a greenhouse. This grant has enabled us to be able to purchase the greenhouse and the supplies needed, and it's something that's been a great experience for not only my students but other students in the school. One of my favorite things about this project was that it was student-led. So the students were responsible for every aspect of planning the garden. They began by budgeting and planning to see what they would be able to accomplish with the amount of money that we had available. They were responsible for scouting an area in the school that the garden would be sustainable in. So we talked about making sure that it had access to irrigation, that it would get enough sun, but also be protected from the sun in our hot desert. They found their location. They took all of the measurements. They made sure that the greenhouse that they had researched would fit and thrive in that area. They took part in helping with construction and planning. They did every role from sifting the dirt to putting the soil in. It was something that they were very excited to do, and they did a great job. They also took part in a lot of researching about what plants would be sustainable in our desert. So they started by brainstorming things that they would like to grow. Then they were each responsible for taking an active role in the researching to see if we would be able to be successful in those plants. We did some lessons on conservation and sustainability, and they created a plan to where this garden would thrive in our climate. We had a lot of community and school collaboration with our garden. So our students met with our local master gardener who gave them an introduction to gardening. So he brought some different seeds, he brought some different plants. He talked about the successes that he's had for his garden. This was really empowering for them because he shared with them how he has been able to provide a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables for his family of 7 and the benefits that it's had on him. So they were really excited to see that and see that that was something that they could do as well. He brought each of them a startup plant of lettuce seeds that they were able to take home and share with their families. He introduced us to a local Facebook gardening group where the students are able to see different gardens in our community that have been successful and the different types of fruits and vegetables and plants that they grow there. We've had a lot of parents and local community members who stepped up to volunteer their time to help the students, whether it was in lesson planning, sharing advice, showing them what has worked for them. We had one speaker who came in and gave them a lesson on the benefits of different soils and recommendations for things that they should try in their garden. My favorite thing about this is the life skills that my students have learned through this gardening process. So working with gifted students, I've found that they have a lot of socio-emotional needs, and this has been something that has been a great boost for that. They've learned a lot of self-confidence and empowerment in being able to produce actual plants from seeds. They've learned leadership skills as they've created lessons to share with the younger grades. They were really excited when they learned that second grade was learning about the life cycle of a pumpkin, and they created a presentation to share with them, which then inspired them to start growing pumpkins in our in our greenhouse that they are going to create a pumpkin patch out of to share with the rest of the school. It's really worked on their social skills. They've worked together to create these plans, to do their gardening, to share this with the other school. So their collaboration with each other and other members of the school has been a great benefit. And they've learned a lot about perseverance. So some of their plants were not successful, but they were able to go back to the drawing board and figure out how they can improve it or what they could do to make it better. So it's been a huge boost to their self-confidence. We're excited for a lot of the things we're going to be doing next year with the garden. We have a trip planned to our local nursery, in addition to a garden tour that we've been invited to go on. So it's been a really self-confidence booster for them. They found a lot of really great benefits for the rest of the school, including flowers that they grew and passed out for teacher appreciation. So it's something that they're excited to continue working on for next year. And we are appreciative of this opportunity to create this greenhouse garden.
Thanks to Jennifer for making the video recording and sharing about her project. It continues to be exciting for me to get to hear about so many students learning about where their food's coming from and helping to grow it as well through gardening. All right, I think Kristen Chambers is back with us now. Kristen's from the Northern California region. And Kristen, we're excited to hear about your project.
Hello, my name's Kristen Chambers. I teach at Modoc High School, and I'm an art teacher out here. And we received this grant to do a Shark Tank, a Modoc Youth Shark Tank event. And so the purpose of our project was to teach our young students, kindergarten through third grade, entrepreneurship skills, because about 40% of our local income in our area, in our rural area, comes from entrepreneurship or small business owners. But there's no real classes or anything that teaches our young people how to start and run a business. And so we thought that maybe it would be a good idea to get our young students starting to think about creative ideas and do a project-based learning activity, which they designed a business that they think that would contribute to our community, that our community needs to be sustainable. And so we had a bunch of different ideas, from hair salons, bakeries, butcher shops, because we have a lot of cattle, but no butcher shop, you know, lemonades, some things as simple as lemonade stands, so typical first time entrepreneurship for a student. And so that was the basis of the project. And so I designed the curriculum for students. I used the Kansas City Federal Reserve curriculum to teach students how to be financially stable, or to think financially, and to gain entrepreneurship skills. We partnered with Advancing Modoc Youth. We partnered with Alturas Elementary School. We partnered with our SEALs after school program at the elementary school. We partnered with our Ag Foods program to make the food. We partnered with Modoc County Arts Council. We hired a potter to come in and teach my ceramics students at the high school how to make bowls. And the purpose of the making of the bowls, I'll get there in a second, I guess. It's in the next slide. But basically, we all wanted to come together to show that we have, community sustainability. And so on this slide is just our flyer to advertise to our Shark Tank event. So, kids went through about 2 months of learning how to start a business and develop a business plan, set up a budget, advertising, design logos and slogans. And then at the final event, which was on May 9th, they It was kind of a science fair style where they had their display for their business. People in the community came and talked to them about their business ideas. They shared, and then we gave out awards. I guess we'll go to the next slide. Oops. Oh, I hope I didn't lose you. I did something wrong. Okay, there we go. So part of the project, besides going in and teaching the elementary schoolers how to design a business, my ceramic students made bowls. So we hired the Arts Council to come in and teach my students how to throw bowls on the wheel. We made about 117 handmade bowls, and each one of them had a design on it that represented our community and something they loved about the community. Like the one in the front there has a little snake on it. I don't know if that's what I like about our community, but you know, to each its own. So they were able to learn that skill. So I guess next slide. And then at our, so this is the students designing their business plans. And so there's a lot of group work and collaboration. We'll go to the last slide, I believe. And then at our final event, that's when people were ticket holders, and we sold out of our event. Ticket holders were able to go in. Each one of them picked out their own handmade bowl. FFA made the soup and the bread and the desserts to serve into their bowls, and people were able to enjoy their meal as they walked around and looked at all these kids' different ideas for what they thought our community needed to be a better community. So we gave out cash awards to our students. It was just a really great event. A lot of people had a lot of enthusiasm about it. I've really never seen the whole community come together from all different aspects into one event. Everybody stayed the whole time. It was just a really, everybody, my ceramic students are addicted to making bowls. So it was really great. And actually we want to expand on this program. A lot of people want to see it again next year. So we're hoping to be able to do it again next year.
Great work, Kristen. Thank you so much. And I just appreciate all the layers of the project, from the community event to having it serve as a fundraiser for the Shark Tank that is all about businesses to help improve and support the local community. That cycle of connection is really exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, and with that, that's our final fellow presentation. So you have just gotten to hear 16 incredible projects supporting and serving rural schools and communities and rural students across the United States. It really is an honor to hear, and I want to celebrate all these fellows' work. So I'd invite everybody to unmute yourself, and we'll just do 10 or 15 seconds of some cheers out loud. So please unmute and join me in congratulating the fellows.
Yay. Great job, fellows.
Fantastic.
Great
Congratulations.
Fellows, nice work. Congratulations on a big year of work that you've taken on. And I'm glad we get to celebrate you today. I'll turn it over to Savannah in a moment. Thank you all for joining us. Fellows, we invite you to stay on the Zoom for just a couple more minutes. And Savannah, any final closing announcements?
Yeah, thank you so much, Leslie. And thank you all for being here this afternoon and celebrating these wonderful educators. I want to take a moment and thank the Grants in Place Selection Committee as well. They have the exciting and tough job of combing through over 100 incredible applications from across the country and choosing 16, 17 amazing fellows and projects this year. So really thankful for their dedication to place-based education. One last round of applause for the fellows, and just really appreciative of everyone's time here this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining, and fellows, please stay on, but thank you all.